Hello, welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important news appearing in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 22nd July 2019. The news to be discussed has been presented on the screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So let's start our today's discussion with a prelims question of 2019. Now today, let's start our discussion with this particular question asked in the 2019 prelims examination with respect to Global Competitiveness Report. It says that the Global Competitiveness Report is published by which of the following institutions? The options were International Monetary Fund, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, World Economic Forum, and World Bank. Now, this particular topic has been discussed extensively in Daily News Simplified dated 24 January 2018. And in this particular news, it was discussed various issues affecting the World Economic Forum. As you can see, the news reads PM calls protectionism as dangerous as terrorism. And this particular news was with respect to World Economic Forum's annual meeting at Davos, which is in Switzerland. And here you can see that we had discussed about the Global Competitiveness Report published by World Economic Forum. So here the correct answer to this particular question based on the DNS dated 24 January 2018 becomes C, that is World Economic Forum. Now after solving this question, let's move to our daily news discussion. The first news appears in the editorial section on page number 10. It says sucking up surplus. SEBI needs financial autonomy to remain effective as the chief markets regulator. Now, this news is with respect to the financial autonomy of SEBI, that is, Securities and Exchange Board of India. Now, before understanding the amendment, let us first understand about SEBI for those who do not have any idea with respect to the functions of Securities and Exchange Board of India. Now, SEBI is a regulatory body, and this body was constituted through an Act of Parliament under the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992. And this body is the regulator of the securities market and also regulate the overall trade of securities, including its trade in the National Stock Exchange as well as the Bombay Stock Exchange. Now it says that the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992 provides for the establishment of a board to protect the interest of investors in securities and also to promote the development of and to regulate the securities market and for matters connected with the security market. So this is basically the functions of SEBI. That is, it is a regulatory body to protect the interest of investors in securities market and also to promote the development and to regulate the securities market. So this editorial is with respect to an amendment forwarded in this Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992 through a finance bill of 2019. Now in your prelims examination, this topic becomes a part of economic development, and in your mains, it gets covered under two heads. First, under GS paper 2 with respect to statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies as well as government policies and interventions for development in various sectors, including the securities market. And next, it also gets covered under GS paper 3, specifically with respect to Indian economy. Now, after understanding about the Securities and Exchange Board of India, let us understand the proposed amendment as suggested by the government through the Finance Bill of 2019. So, the central government has proposed the Finance Bill of 2019 in which the Part 9 deals with amendments to the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992. And this editorial pertains to this particular amendment proposed through the Finance Bill of 2019. Now let us first understand what is being proposed through these amendments, then we will try to go through these legal words and try to understand what they are actually saying. Now as per the SEBI Act, there is already a general fund in which the annual surplus of SEBI is collected. So the proposed amendment has asked the SEBI to create a reserve fund in which 25% of annual surplus of general fund shall be transferred to the reserve fund. So whatever revenue is collected in this general fund, 25% of the annual surplus shall be transferred to the reserve fund, and the remaining amount in the general fund shall be transferred to the Consolidated Fund of India. So this is what is being proposed through the Finance Bill of 2019. So it basically says that from the general fund of SEBI, 25% of the annual surplus shall be transferred to the reserve fund and the remaining amount shall be transferred to the Consolidated Fund of India, or basically to the central government. So after understanding this aspect, let's go through the legal words as proposed through this amendment. It says that the board shall constitute a reserve fund, that is this, and 25% of annual surplus of the general fund, that is 25% of annual surplus of the general fund in any year shall be credited to the reserve fund, and such fund shall not exceed the total annual expenditure of last 2 financial years. So this is another stipulation as proposed through the amendment. It says the amount collected in the reserve fund shall not exceed the total annual expenditure of SEBI of the last 2 financial years. So this is basically what is being proposed through the Finance Bill of 2019 with respect to amendment in the SEBI Act. Now concerns have been raised not only by the officials of SEBI but also by the chairman of SEBI by highlighting that this move of the central government will impact financial autonomy of Securities and Exchange Board of India. However, the central government has refused to lend an ear to SEBI officials, and this move by the central government may lead to future conflicts with the central government and with SEBI, which is an independent regulatory body of securities market. Now, the editorial highlights that there shall be certain impact of the proposed amendment on the working of Securities and Exchange Board of India. First of all, the editorial mentions that this transfer of surplus fund to the Consolidated Fund of India will not provide a substantial amount. That is, it will not provide that much an amount which will impact or which will benefit the central government's fiscal status or fiscal situation. So the editorial says that such a transfer will not make much of a difference to the central government's overall fiscal situation. Hence, this entire move by the central government is in order to increase its control over the regulatory body, that is over SEBI. And this decision will also impact SEBI's ability to handle administrative as well as financial decisions. Further, the editorial says that lack of financial autonomy will also have an impact on SEBI's plan to not only improve quality of its administration by investing in new technologies as well as its ability to invest in other requirements with respect to upgradation of market infrastructure, specifically in the securities market. So these all can be said to be the impact of proposed amendment in near future. Now the editorial ends by saying that earlier the Reserve Bank of India as well as National Sample Survey Office have also come under pressure in recent months by the central government, and the latest move to exert pressure, that too with respect to financial autonomy of SEBI, is a worrisome trend with respect to independent agencies, and it shows that the move of the central government is primarily to subordinate the independence of these regulatory bodies. Another aspect highlighted in this editorial is with respect to centralization of power through Ministry of Finance. As it says that centralization of power through Ministry of Finance may prove risky in the longer run with respect to regulating these regulatory or independent bodies. So the editorial effectively says that reducing or clipping powers of such regulatory bodies might not only impact their independence but also will impact the credibility of the institution or the sector which it represents. So these are basically the points highlighted with respect to an amendment proposed under the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992 with respect to transfer of 25% of the annual surplus of fund from general fund to the reserve fund. And it says that this move impacts subordination of regulatory bodies. It provides for centralization of power basically through Ministry of Finance, and this may prove risky in the long run with respect to regulating these independent regulatory bodies. And this decision of the central government with respect to reducing powers of these regulatory bodies not only impact their independence but also affects the credibility of the institution, as well as of the sector which it represents. Thus, this particular editorial becomes extremely important to understand with respect to the amendments proposed under SEBI Act 1992. Now, after a discussion, this becomes your practice question for the mains. It says subordination of independent regulatory bodies by the central government might prove disastrous in the longer run. Comment. So, I hope after going through this discussion, it becomes easier for you to analyze important aspects with respect to subordination of these independent regulatory bodies by the central government as well as the impact of such subordination. So, after this discussion, let's move on to our next news analysis. Now, next news of discussion appears on page number 10 as a lead article with respect to Right to Information Amendment Bill 2019 as proposed by this new government in the Lok Sabha. The article says the tremor of unwelcome amendments. Right to Information Amendment Bill is a twin attack on accountability and the idea of federalism. So this article highlights the important ingredients of Right to Information Amendment Bill of 2019 which the government has introduced in Lok Sabha as it proposes to give central government the power to set the salaries and conditions of service. Further, it also aims to amend the tenure of service of information commissioners as provided in the RTI Act of 2005. So let's not only go through the proposed amendments in the Right to Information Amendment Bill of 2019 but also try to understand what this article tries to highlight with respect to transparency, accountability, reason for opposition of 2019 bill as presented in the Lok Sabha as well as the need for independent institutions. Now, a question on Right to Information Act was asked in GS paper 4 in 2018. The question read, the Right to Information Act is not all about citizens' empowerment alone. It essentially redefines the concept of accountability. Discuss. And this question was asked with respect to 150 words. So we understand that right to information not only becomes an important topic of governance but also becomes an important topic with respect to ethics in GS paper 4. So with respect to your syllabus, in your prelims, it gets covered under Indian polity and governance, and in your mains, it gets covered under GS paper 2 with respect to statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies as well as GS paper 4. So before understanding what these authors in this article has tried to highlight with respect to this amendment, first of all, let us understand the amendment itself so as to better analyze the reasons provided by the author in this article. Now this proposed amendment of 2019 aims to amend section 13, 16 and 27 of the RTI Act of 2005. So let's go through the provisions first of all of the RTI Act of 2005 with respect to section 13, 16 and 27, and then we'll try to understand that what is the proposed amendment in the present bill of 2019. So this is section 13 of RTI Act of 2005 and it provides for terms of office and conditions of service. It says that the Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office and shall not be eligible for reappointment. Further, with respect to every other information commissioner, it says that they shall also hold office for a term of 5 years from the date on which they enter upon their office or till they attain the age of 65 years. Similar was the condition with respect to Chief Information Commissioner as well. It said that no Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office as such after he has attained the age of 65 years. So basically, both the Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioner had to retire after 65 years and their tenure was fixed at 5 years. After understanding this aspect, let us go through what the proposed amendment in 2019 bill states. Now as you can see that this is the original Right to Information Amendment Bill of 2019 and it says that in Right to Information Act of 2005, an amendment shall be proposed in section 13. It says that in subsection 1, the words for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office shall be replaced with the word for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. So this amendment basically removed the fixed tenure of 5 years with that of such term as may be prescribed by the central government. So, this fixed tenure of 5 years, as highlighted here, shall be replaced by such terms as fixed by the central government. Now, this amendment affects or impacts their tenure or their independence of functioning, because now their removal will be now directly at the hands of the central government. Now, as you can see, that clause 2 of section 13 provided for a term of 5 years for every information commissioner. Now, let's see what the proposed amendment says. Now, here again, the proposed amendment says that for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office shall be replaced by for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. So basically, this tenure of 5 years, both for Chief Information Commissioner as well as Information Commissioners, shall be removed with such term as fixed by the central government. So basically, it impacts their tenure or security of service or the period for which they will maintain at their office. So basically, it means that these information commissioners now has to work as per the whims and fancies of the central government, else they remain in the hand of executive control. Now, under the RTI Act of 2005, clause 5 of section 13 says that the salaries and allowances payable to other terms and conditions of service of Chief Information Commissioner shall be same as that of the Chief Election Commissioner. So basically, the salary and allowances of Chief Information Commissioner was equivalent or same as that of the Chief Election Commissioner. Further, the salaries and allowances of Information Commissioner was same as that of an Election Commissioner. So let's see what the proposed amendment says with respect to this provision. Now, the proposed amendment under the bill says that the salaries and allowances payable to and other terms and conditions of service of Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioners shall be as such may be prescribed by the central government. So the equivalence of Chief Information Commissioner with that of Chief Election Commissioner with respect to salary stands removed, along with the salary of Information Commissioner, which was at par with the Election Commissioner. So now their salary will also be decided by the central government. Now here also, as per the proposed bill, these salaries will be decided by the central government as may be prescribed. Now, section 16 of RTI Act of 2005 provided for term of office and conditions of service for State Chief Information Commissioner as well as State Information Commissioner, and this also fixed the term for a period of 5 years, both for State Chief Information Commissioner as well as for every other State Information Commissioner. Now let's go through what the proposed amendment says. So here also, the proposed amendment under section 16, it replaces the tenure of 5 years with the words for such term as may be prescribed by the central government, both with respect to State Chief Information Commissioner as well as every other State Information Commissioners. As it says again that the term of 5 years with respect to every other State Information Commissioners shall be replaced by the words for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. Similarly, with respect to their salaries and allowances, now clause 5 of section 16 provided for salaries and allowances payable to and other terms and conditions of service. It said that the salary of State Chief Information Commissioner shall be same as that of an Election Commissioner, and State Information Commissioner's salary shall be same as that of Chief Secretary to the government. So the proposed amendment says that the salaries and allowances payable to and other terms and conditions of service of the State Chief Information Commissioner and State Information Commissioners shall be such as may be prescribed by the central government. So the proposed amendment has removed the parity with respect to salary, that of State Chief Information Commissioner to that of Election Commissioner, and State Information Commissioner with that of Chief Secretary has now been removed. So basically now their salary will be prescribed by the central government. So this is the proposed change again in section 16 of RTI Act. Now further, section 27 of the RTI Act provided for power to make rules by appropriate government. Now by amending section 27, the central government will also control through rules the terms and conditions of appointment of commissioners in the states. So these are the suggested amendments as provided through the Right to Information Amendment Bill of 2019. Now this article has questioned these amendments proposed by the government with respect to the RTI Act of 2005. Now the question is that is guarantee of tenure so important? Now this becomes an important question because such a question can be asked in your mains examination. not only with respect to RTI or Information Commission, but also with respect to other independent regulatory bodies, as we saw in our previous analysis with respect to an amendment proposed under SEBI. So, in this aspect, the article points out that all the provisions related to appointment were carefully examined by a parliamentary standing committee, and it was unanimously acknowledged by the parliamentary standing committee reports that one of the most important structural constituents of any oversized institution, such as the Chief Vigilance Commission, the Chief Election Commission, Lokpal, as well as the Chief Information Commission, is the basic guarantee of tenure. Because without a basic guarantee of tenure of its highest officers, independence of the institution cannot be guaranteed, as the important officers will be under constant threat or fear of removal while doing or performing their independent functions. So basically, the Parliamentary Standing Committee unanimously acknowledged the importance of basic guarantee of tenure of any independent oversight institution. So basically, the security of tenure through an act of parliament not only provides for the independence of officers in their working, but also ensures independence of the institution and overall improves the accountability, thereby ensuring credibility of the institution. So this is the importance with respect to security of tenure. So yes, guarantee of tenure is really very important, especially with respect to these independent oversight institutions such as CVC, Chief Election Commission, as well as Chief Information Commission. Now another question which one begs to ask is that why the RTI Amendment Bill of 2019 is so vigorously being opposed. Now let us understand this aspect as well. Now while introducing this bill in the Lok Sabha, the Minister of State for Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions stated that this amendment was a benevolent and minor mechanism of rule making rather than a basic amendment to the RTI law. Now we know that this proposed amendment impacts not only the tenure of information commissioners but also their salaries and allowances, and we have seen that as per a parliamentary standing committee report, basic guarantee of tenure is a structural constituent of any independent oversight institution, and without which independence of the institution cannot be guaranteed. So here, while introducing the bill, the minister stated that this was a benevolent and minor mechanism of rule making, whereas we know that it was rather a basic amendment to the RTI law because it impacts the security of tenure of such officers. So this is one of the reasons that why this proposed amendment under RTI law is being vigorously opposed. Now another reason suggested by various RTI activists is that this seems to be a deliberate change to alter the existing framework under the RTI Act of 2005 by proposing amendment to the RTI Act, as this amendment downgrades information commissioners both at the central level as well as the state level. Further, this amendment will empower the central government to unilaterally decide the tenure, salary as well as allowances with respect to information commissioners both at the central as well as at the state level, including the Chief Information Commissioner as well as State Chief Information Commissioner. Now another point of opposition by the RTI activists and by the civil society is that the manner in which the amendment is being pushed through the Lok Sabha without any citizen consultation, also without any scrutiny by the Standing Committee of Parliament. Further, no scrutiny by the Standing Committee of the Parliament also shows the desperation of the government to pass the amendment without proper parliamentary scrutiny. So the mandatory pre-legislative consultative policy of the government has been so far ignored in this present case. So effectively, with respect to manner in which the amendment is being pushed through the Lok Sabha, these are the 3 points on which the civil society is opposing this particular amendment. Basically because there was no citizen consultation on the proposed amendment, there was no scrutiny by the Standing Committee of the Parliament, and also the mandatory pre-legislative consultation has been ignored in this present case of RTI Amendment Bill of 2019. So given all these conditions, the intent of the government is being questioned by the civil society and RTI activists. And along with the same line, another point of opposition is the fact that the proposed changes in RTI were introduced in complete secrecy without any public disclosure and consultations on draft legislation. So this move of the government also becomes questionable about their intent as such amendment will certainly increase central government's executive control over the information commissioner through changes proposed in appointment process. Thus, amendments proposed under RTI will overall weaken the democratic institutions. So after going through these aspects, we must ask ourselves that do we really need these independent institutions? Now to answer this question, let's go through the views of Granville Austin, who is one of the eminent scholar of Indian Constitution, where the eminent scholar says that the philosophy of the Indian Constitution can be found in three strands. These strands are: first, protecting and enhancing national unity and integrity; second, establishing the institutions and spirit of democracy; and third, fostering a social revolution to better the mass of Indians. It further adds that these three strands are mutually dependent and inextricably intertwined or linked, and the state is mandated to promote the welfare of its citizens by securing and protecting as effectively as possible a social order in which there is social, economic, and political justice. Further, the government also plays a vital role in the social and economic upliftment of nation's citizens by espousing equitable distribution of resources and creating equal opportunities. So basically, these are the ideals that are meant to guide and govern state action. Now, one of the important aspects as highlighted by this eminent scholar is with respect to establishing an institutions as well as nurturing the spirit of democracy in such institutions. Thus, independent structures set to regulate and monitor the government are vital to a democratic state committed to deliver justice and constitutional guarantees. The separation of power is a concept which underscores this independence and is vital to our democratic checks and balances. Whereas centralization of power not only impacts democratic norms of functioning but also threatens freedom of expression, especially if an amendment is proposed under the RTI Act itself. So this article says that this proposed amendment under RTI through RTI Amendment Bill 2019 is a deliberative architectural change in the existing RTI framework. So this article highlights that this proposed amendment has the ability to change power equations at the center, to affect or impact freedom of expression, and also to impact the democratic functioning of Chief Information Commission. Thus, the Information Commission, which is vested by law with status, independence and authority, will now function like a department of the central government. Thus, this decision of the government to usurp the powers to set the terms and conditions of service and salaries of an independent body, that is the Chief Information Commission, must be understood as an obvious attempt by the government to weaken the independence and authority granted by the law. Thus, this article effectively says that the proposed amendment under RTI Act of 2005 violates constitutional principle of federalism, as it also impacts the State Information Commission. It undermines independence of the Information Commission, and it also dilutes the framework for transparency, which is a must with respect to the functioning of Information Commission, as well as the security of tenure with respect to Information Commissioners. Thus, this article with respect to Right to Information Amendment Bill 2019 and the reason for its protest becomes very important to understand, not only from our prelims but also from our mains perspective, as questions can be asked either in GS paper 2 or in GS paper 4. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news also appears on page number 10 in the article section. It says, an ally, a partner, and American unilateralism. There are major differences but also similarities in US response to Russia's S-400 deals with Turkey and India. This news highlights that both Turkey and India intend to purchase the S-400 missile anti-aircraft weapon system from Russia. And this is a problem because any missile defense purchase from Russia will attract the CATSA law or sanctions under the CATSA law. Now this article highlights that the purchase of S-400 system from Russia, both by Turkey and India, should be seen in a different context, and the US should make a distinction between Turkey and India, as purchase of S-400 missile system both by Turkey and India has its different purposes. So with this aspect, let's go through this article with respect to purchase of S-400 missile system from Russia both by Turkey as well as India. Now, this news highlights that the United States is determined to terminate Turkey's participation in F-35 Joint Strike Fighter project. Further, the United States is also threatening to impose CATSA law on Turkey. Now, under the Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, or CATSA law, imposes sanctions on countries having military agreements with Iran, North Korea, and Russia. Now, important point to be noted is that even India's purchase of S-400 missile system from Russia falls within the CATSA law. Now, as we have seen that even Turkey intends to purchase S-400 missile system from Russia. So both India as well as Turkey's purchase of S-400 missile system from Russia gets covered under the CATSA law. The United States is also suspicious about Turkey's closeness to Russia, as it also intends to buy advanced Sukhoi fighter jets from Russia to compensate for the loss of F-35 planes. Now, United States is looking at Turkey with suspicion also because of the fact that Turkey is a long-standing member of NATO, that is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is an integral part of American-led alliance whose principal goal is to prevent growth and expansion of Russian influence and power. Now, this closeness with respect to military engagements of Turkey and Russia is being watched with suspicious eyes not only by United States but also by other members of NATO, as the US and NATO allies are worried that Russian military relation with Turkey could grant Russia access to technological secrets of NATO's most sophisticated weapon system. So basically, the United States does not want Russia to know about the technical details of its F-35 fighter jets. So it is in this aspect both India and Turkey are caught in the same conundrum with respect to CATSA law in the pretext of buying this S-400 missile system from Russia. Now, initially, United States was willing to provide a waiver from sanctions of CATSA law to India with respect to purchasing Russian S-400 missile system. However, because of recent Turkish purchase of these S-400 missile system by Turkey, United States has said that it cannot provide waiver to India for the same purpose that it will sanction Turkey for. So here we need to understand that because of Turkish purchase of S-400 missile system from Russia, United States is not willing to grant waiver to India because it says that under the CATSA law, it cannot sanction one country and give a waiver to the other. So it is here where the author says that the United States should make a distinction between Turkey and India with respect to purchase of S-400 missile system from Russia. Now, opposition of United States against Turkey can be understood from the fact that Turkey is also a member of NATO, and the United States as well as the members of NATO are suspicious and worried of the growing closeness between Turkey and Russia, and they are also worried that NATO's sophisticated missile system may be passed over to Russia through Turkey. So this is a suspicion of United States with respect to Turkey. Further, the author says that United States also needs to make a distinction with India from Turkey, as India is not a partner of United States in any form of defense alliance. Therefore, the United States sanctions on India with respect to S-400 missile system has no strong merit, as it will not compromise US security against Russia, as neither India is a NATO member nor India is a partner of United States in any form of defense alliance. So here the author is trying to highlight the security concerns and the difference with respect to buying of S-400 missile system by India as well as by Turkey from Russia, as it says that since Turkey is a NATO member, hence there are concerns that Turkey might leak some of the sophisticated details to Russia, and this may impact US as well as NATO allies. So in this aspect, there are certain security concerns with respect to Turkey buying S-400 missile system from Russia, whereas with respect to India, there is not such much of a concern because neither India is a partner of US in any form of defense alliance, as well as buying S-400 by India will not compromise United States security against Russia. Now, this particular news is in transition, so let us wait and see how India and United States move forward with respect to purchase of S-400 missile system from Russia. Now, the next news appears on page number 11. It says, an invasive and inefficient tool. Use of facial recognition technology in law enforcement can have disastrous consequences. Now this article highlights about automated facial recognition system, also referred as AFRS. Now this automated facial recognition system has been recently proposed by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And under this, the government want to use technology in criminal justice system. Now, with respect to use of technology, there are both positives as well as negatives with respect to use of this automated facial recognition system. And this is what this article has highlighted, mostly with respect to the negatives, or we can say concerns highlighted with respect to use of automated facial recognition system. As according to this article, it not only impacts our privacy but also creates a system of mass surveillance through these automated facial recognition system, as it allows all the CCTV cameras as well as other instruments to record our faces from various public places. So on this note, let us go through what this article has highlighted with respect to various aspects on intrusion of privacy as well as mass surveillance through use of automated facial recognition system. Now this topic in your prelims examination gets covered under general science as well as under the issues of governance in Indian polity. Whereas in your mains, it gets covered under GS paper 2 specifically with respect to governance, and under GS paper 3 with respect to science and technology as well as developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. So AFRS can be said to be an application and effect of use of technology in everyday life. So let's go through the provisions of this particular article. Now this news highlights that NCRB, that is National Crime Records Bureau, has conceptualized this system of AFRS, that is Automated Facial Recognition System. And this effort is with respect to modernizing the police force, information gathering, criminal identification, verification of criminals, as well as its dissemination among various police organizations and units across India. So this is with respect to AFRS, and it has been conceptualized by the National Crime Records Bureau. The NCRB in its report highlights that availability of relevant and timely information is extremely important with respect to solving criminal cases, particularly with respect to investigation of crime and in tracking and detection of criminals. So this is where the AFRS system will help. It says that the automated facial recognition system can play a very vital role in improving outcomes in the area of criminal identification as well as verification by facilitating easy recording, analysis, retrieval and sharing of information between different organizations. The report highlights that quick and timely information availability and gathering of information can bring sea change with respect to crime and criminals handling as well as related operations. So this has highlighted the benefits with respect to automated facial recognition system. So the NCRB has proposed to use automated facial recognition through existing records in the crime and criminal tracking network and system, that is through the CCTNS database. Now the question is that how will this AFRS work? So the automated facial recognition system will work by maintaining a large database with photos and videos of people's faces. So first, photos and videos of all the people will be taken through CCTV cameras. It then says, then a new image of an unidentified person is compared to the existing database. Next, to find an unidentified person, the photograph of that unidentified person will be matched with the existing database containing all the people pictures and their videos to find a match, and through this match the government or the law enforcement agencies will try to map and identify the person. It says that the database with respect to automated facial recognition system will use images from sources like CCTV cameras, newspapers and rates to identify criminals against existing records in the CCTNS database, that is Crime and Criminal Tracking Network System. So this is how basically the AFRS will work. Now after understanding the working of automated facial recognition system, let us understand the issues involved with respect to this particular automated facial recognition system. The first and foremost issue with respect to AFRS is lack of a data protection law in India. Another issue of concern is that of proper and regulated use of AFRS. As a system like AFRS will not only create a biometric map of our faces but will also track, classify, and possibly anticipate our every move. And through AFRS, citizens can also be classified according to their profiles. So basically, it can lead to classification of citizens based on different parameters. Further, capturing faces of every citizen through CCTV cameras also in a way impacts right to privacy. Another issue involved is with respect to accuracy rate of these facial recognition system. As the accuracy rate of these facial recognition system as employed by the Delhi police was as low as 2%, and this is a extreme cause of concern. Now, statistics of accuracy rate coming from different police organization of different country is also not very encouraging, as accuracy rate of these facial recognition system world over is quite low. Further, the police departments in London are also under extreme pressure to put a complete end to use of facial recognition system following evidence of discrimination and inefficiency. Further, even San Francisco recently implemented a complete ban on police use of facial recognition. Now, another issue is that AFRS treats all images captured through CCTV cameras as potential criminals. So, this ability of AFRS to treat all images captured as potential criminals has the ability or power to reverse the criminal justice system followed in India, as India follows a system where a person is not guilty unless he or she has been proven otherwise. However, here, once an image of a person is captured through a CCTV camera, he is potentially a criminal as per AFRS, as all the citizens' images will be mapped with respect to an unidentified person. Now, another important aspect highlighted here is that accuracy rates of facial recognition algorithm are particularly low in the case of minorities, women, as well as children, as it has been demonstrated in multiple studies across the world. Now, another major issue involved here is with respect to mass surveillance through capture of images as well as videos of citizens around the country. Now, as already highlighted, that India as of now does not have a data protection law, and in the absence of safeguards, law enforcement agencies will have a high degree of discretion with the use of these facial recognition systems. So basically, lack of data protection law in India makes use of AFRS completely at the discretion of law enforcement agencies without any proper checks or balance. So it is in this aspect that the government needs to reintroduce the Personal Data Protection Bill of 2018 in order to have a data protection law in India. Thus, there needs to be maintained a proper check and balance with respect to use of automated facial recognition system, because the idea is to catch a criminal and not to make people suffer because of the fact that their pictures or videos are captured through the CCTV images or CCTV cameras. So these are some of the issues highlighted in this particular article with respect to use of automated facial recognition system. Now, based on our discussion, this forms your practice question for mains. It says that highlight the important benefits of use of automated facial recognition system, that is AFRS. Will use of such technology lead to infringement of privacy and mass surveillance? Give reasons for your answer. So I hope after this discussion you will be able to attempt this particular question. So after our discussion on AFRS, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news appears on page number 13. It says NITI Aayog Health Index suffers from skew. Use of estimated figures in place of reported numbers affected the final score of certain states. Now, the reported as well as estimated figures related to health indicators for the year 2015-16 is available in the Health Management Information System, that is HMIS, which is a statistical arm of the Ministry of Union Health and Family Welfare. However, the news highlights that NITI Aayog in its report on Healthy States Progressive India used the estimated figure and not the reported figure. And this has adversely impacted the final index score of certain states while boosting that of others. So basically the NITI Aayog use estimated figures and not reported figures from the health management information system. And because of the use of estimated figures by the NITI Aayog in Healthy States Progressive India report, it has impacted the final score of certain states. Now, your prelims examination, this topic becomes a part of social development and sustainable development, and your mains gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically with respect to welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections of the population and also issues relating to development and management of social sector and services relating to health and human resources. Now, this news is taken from PIB dated 25th June 2019. It states that NITI Aayog releases second edition of Healthy States Progressive India report, where Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Maharashtra ranked on top in terms of overall performance, and Haryana, Rajasthan, and Jharkhand ranked top three states in terms of annual incremental performance. So it highlights that the NITI Aayog's report with respect to healthy states and progressive India ranks states and union territories innovatively on year incremental change in health outcomes as well as their overall performance. Further, it highlights that rank 2 of the report focuses on measuring and highlighting the overall performance and incremental improvement over a 2-year period, that is from 2016-17 as well as with respect to 2017-18 in all the states and union territories. Now, this report is basically an annual systematic performance tool, and this helps in measuring performance of states and union territories. So, on the basis of the performance, it ranks states and union territories on year incremental change in health outcomes. So, basically, this report index states on the basis of health outcomes on an year incremental basis or an in year incremental change along with overall performance with respect to other aspects. Now, important point to be noted is that the rankings is categorized as larger states, smaller states as well as union territories. So basically there are three categories with respect to ranking. These are larger states, smaller states and union territories. Further, it says that the health index is a weighted composite index which is based on 23 indicators, and these 23 indicators are grouped into the domains of health outcomes, governance and information, as well as key inputs and processes. And each domain has been assigned weights based on its importance and has been equally distributed among different indicators. So this particular news is with respect to this Healthy States and Progressive India report, where it says that NITI Aayog used the estimated figure from Health Management Information System, and this has resulted or this has impacted the rank of some states, while it has boosted some of the ranks of some states, whereas it has decreased the rank of some of the other states. Now, some of the examples are first with respect to Tamil Nadu. It says that in the case of Tamil Nadu, which has secured a composite index score of 63.38 for the base year of 2015-16, using reported number of deliveries and births instead of estimated figures, and this would have resulted in an increase of 2.17 points for the year. Now, another case highlighted is that of Gujarat. It says that using reported numbers would have resulted in a decrease of 2.99 points and 3.34 points from the final index scores of Gujarat and West Bengal. So it basically says that had NITI Aayog used the reported figure, then the scores of Gujarat and West Bengal would have decreased to 2.99 points and 3.34 points respectively. It further says that with respect to Tamil Nadu, as per the NITI Aayog report, institutional deliveries were pegged at 81.82% in 2015-16, whereas as per the HMIS database, it was 100%. So again we see a difference of 18 percentage points. So there were certain discrepancies with respect to Tamil Nadu, West Bengal as well as Gujarat. So this news basically highlights that the NITI Aayog should have used the reported figure from the Health Management Information System Index rather than the estimated figure. Now, after our discussion, let's solve these practice questions for the day. What you can do is to take a pause of 5 seconds. First, it says, consider the following statements about Securities and Exchange Board of India, that is SEBI. First, it regulates and promotes the development of securities market in India. Yes, this statement is correct. Second, the Parliament, through Finance Bill of 2019, has proposed to transfer annual surplus of SEBI to Consolidated Fund of India. Yes, this statement is also correct. So in this, both the statement becomes correct. So C is the correct answer. Moving on to question number 2, it says, consider the following statements. First, Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office for a term of 5 years. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, he or she shall be eligible for reappointment. No, the Chief Information Commissioner shall not be eligible for reappointment. So in this, the second statement becomes incorrect. So here, A becomes the correct answer. Now these are your practice question number 3 and practice question number 4. What you can do is to take another pause of 5 seconds. The third question says, consider the following statements. India and Turkey intends to purchase S-400 missile from United States of America. No, the statement is incorrect as they intend to purchase S-400 missile from Russia. Second, Turkey is a member of NATO. Yes, the statement is correct. Third, India may attract CATSA law of USA if it purchases S-400 missile system from Russia unless a waiver is granted by USA. But CATSA law will not be applied to Turkey since it is a member of NATO. No, this statement is incorrect as we have seen that CATSA law will be applicable to all such countries who buys missile systems from Russia. So in this, statement 1 and 3 becomes incorrect. Now the question is asking which of the statements given above are incorrect. So here the correct answer would be A, that is 1 and 3 only. Now let's see the question number 4. It says, which of the following can be said to be associated with NITI Aayog? Now similar question was also asked in UPSC of 2019. Now let's see the options here. Options are Atal Innovation Mission, yes. SDG India Index, yes. Delta Rankings of Aspirational Districts, yes. Strategy for New India at 75. So in this, all the 4 can be said to be associated with NITI Aayog. So here D becomes the correct answer. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.